For decades, the freak show was one of America's most popular forms of entertainment. Today, the same shows would be considered unacceptable and cruel, or as one disability rights activist put it, the exploitation of disability. In the mid-19th century, however, Americans were beginning to move from the farms and a family-based society to one that relied more on organizations, including institutionalized entertainment. It was during this time that P.T. Barnum elevated the freak show to national fame through the American Museum in New York City. So, join us for today's video as we're going to look at 15 weird circus freaks history tried to hide. Number 15, Henry Behrens. Henry Behrens, once recognized as the world's smallest man, lived an extraordinary and deeply human life. He was just 30 inches tall and weighed 32 pounds, and his stature fell far below the norm. Yet despite physical limitations, Henry's journey was filled with experiences, hurdles, and victories. Born around 1895 in Brazil to German parents, his development appeared normal until age 2, when his growth abruptly ceased. The exact cause remains unidentified, but conditions like this typically stem from hormonal or genetic factors. Unlike most forms of dwarfism, Henry's body was proportionate, making his case unique. He entered the world of entertainment through Burton Lester's midget troupe, performing as Colonel Pee-wee, captivating global audiences. During his tours, he met Emmy, a fellow performer from Leeds. Despite her being 10 inches taller, their bond was unshakable. They married in 1932. In 1951, they settled in Worthing, where Henry's custom lawnmower-powered car helped him navigate daily life. He died in 1961. Number 14, Johan Pettersson. At one point, Johan Pettersson held the title of tallest man alive. Though eventually surpassed by Robert Wadlow, Johan remained unforgettable thanks to his charm, showmanship, and longevity. Born February 9, 1913, in Dalvik, Iceland, Johan was the third of 9 children and the only giant. By age 20, he reportedly stood 8 feet 8 inches tall, with size 24 shoes. He was gentle, soft-spoken, and children adored him. Despite his size, he was seen as just another guy in town. Sadly, his height made regular employment impossible. In 1934, he moved to Denmark and found an opportunity as a public performer. His first tailored suit required 3 men to measure him. He toured Europe alongside 2 dwarves, performing comedic musical acts. When World War II hit, he remained in Copenhagen, working in shipyards. Strong and healthy, he waited out the war. Post-war, he toured again until John Ringling discovered him. In 1948, he joined the infamous Ringling Brothers show and died there in 1984. It was a full-time job. Number 13, Jonathan R. Bass. Jonathan R. Bass was part of a niche category of sideshow performers called ossified men. He was plagued by rheumatism since early childhood, and he worked his family's upstate New York farm well into adulthood, eventually shifting to bookkeeping. At 57, his body completely locked up, and cataracts took his vision. With few family members left to care for him, Bass chose to exhibit himself in dime museums and traveling shows. Crowds across the country gathered to view his rigid, skeletal figure, often strapped upright to a board. Due to his liquid-only diet, his jaw had frozen shut. He weighed just 75 pounds. Astonishingly, he endured 5 years of exhibition with what was often described as cheerful acceptance. He passed away in 1892 from pneumonia. Despite the grim circumstances, Bass's story is remembered for his endurance, his quiet humor, and the way he turned his condition, however severe, into a final chapter of visibility rather than isolation. A still figure, but never a forgotten one. History is kind, a weird. Number 12, Captain George Auger. Here's someone who lived large in every possible way. Captain George, born William Henry Auger in Cardiff in 1881, grew into a towering sideshow sensation known as the Cardiff Giant. By the age of 18, he measured 7 feet 4 inches tall. At 12, he lied about his age to enlist in the Royal Marines, though that didn't last long. Later, he worked as a theater doorman, married dancer Elizabeth Hearn, and ventured into acting. In 1904, the couple moved to New York, and Auger signed on with Barnum and Bailey. He eventually became a U.S. citizen, authored a stage play called Jack the Giant Killer, and toured constantly. In 1922, just as he was set to film Why Worry? With Harold Lloyd, he died unexpectedly after a Thanksgiving meal. His frame was so massive they had to lower him from a second-story window. His bulldog, Ringling, cried throughout. Though buried in an unmarked grave, Auger left behind a life larger than legend. Number 11. Lucia Zarate. Lucia remains one of the smallest people ever recorded in human history. Born in San Carlos, her growth abruptly stopped after infancy. At 17, she weighed just 4.7 pounds. At 12, she arrived in the United States with her father to be exhibited under the title The Mexican Lilliputian. At just 20 inches tall, even Tom Thumb appeared enormous beside her. She often performed with general might, and like many performers labeled freaks, she accumulated modest wealth through her exhibitions. Despite the exploitative nature of the industry, Lucia's fame brought her international recognition. Tragically, in 1890, while traveling with a circus troupe, their train became stranded in the snow-covered Sierra Nevada mountains. She succumbed to the harsh conditions. Lucia was both admired and objectified, but her life, though short, drew attention to those living outside physical norms. Her existence remains a poignant chapter in sideshow history, not just for her small stature, but for her perseverance in an unforgiving era. Number 10. Admiral Dot. Well, let's rewind to 1868. Barnum's American Museum had just burned down for the final time. Everyone assumed he'd stepped away for good. Not a chance. While passing through San Francisco, Barnum caught word of Leopold S. Kahn, a little person he claimed was even tinier than Tom Thumb. Barnum quickly scooped him up, renamed him Admiral Dot, and proudly displayed him in his hotel lobby for weeks. Shortly after, Dot joined Barnum's new project, P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum, Menagerie, Caravan, and Circus. He also worked with the American Lilliputian Company and later with Barnum's chief rival, Adam Forepaugh. In 1892, he married Lottie Swartwood, also a little person, and settled in White Plains, New York, where he opened the Admiral Dot Hotel, later nicknamed Hotel Pee-wee. Tragically, both he and his daughter were lost to the 1918 influenza pandemic. Despite his diminutive stature, Admiral Dot left a monumental impact on circus history, standing proudly beside the legends of the sideshow. Number 9. Zamora the Torture King. The first time Captain saw Zamora perform was back in the 90s, during the notorious Lollapalooza tour. It was pure inspiration. Fast forward to 1999 in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The Torture King and Slyman Hyman were touring with their girly freak show, and Captain, then Chris Steele, got the chance of a lifetime, handed the mic, and instantly owned the crowd. It wasn't a sideshow at the time, but body suspension. If you're curious how he evolved into who he is now, scroll down and read that blog. Anyway, moving on. Over the last 15 years, we've shared the stage with Zamora many times. Watching him work is captivating. He commands fear and fascination with every breath. I first saw him live at the Masquerade during the Hell's-a Poppin' review, and he left me stunned. His delivery, his magnetism, it's unreal. Whether on TV, in print, or live, Zamora stuns. Seeing him return to the US for our March 6th show, honestly, it's a full circle. Number 8, Angelo Rossito. Well, we're not joking or exaggerating. Angelo Rosito had one of the longest, strangest, and most remarkable film careers of any sideshow figure. Standing just 2 feet 11 inches, he built a resume of over 70 film appearances between 1927 and 1987. Unlike others from Freaks, Rosito never needed the circus to find his spotlight. He played it all: aliens, goblins, henchmen, courtiers, sometimes buried in makeup, sometimes appearing as himself. He went by Little Mo, Angelino, or simply his real name. Born in Omaha, he earned steady income running a newsstand in LA, using acting to supplement his earnings. His debut film, The Beloved Rogue, 1927, with John Barrymore. He popped up in cult classics like Spooks Run Wild, The Corpse Vanishes, Dracula Versus, Frankenstein, Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome as Master, and even played a little pig in Babes in Toyland. Rosito also appeared in H.R. Pufnstuf, Lidsville, and more. While many vanished after Freaks, Angelo never stopped working. Number 7. Charles Tripp. Back then, Charles wasn't simply the most renowned armless performer alive, he was one of Canada's most celebrated entertainers. Born on July 6, 1855 in Woodstock, Tripp's widespread recognition stemmed largely from his legendary partner and lifelong friend, Eli Bowen. Tripp was born without arms, but from a young age, he mastered the use of his legs and feet as if they were hands. Though never exhibited during childhood, he gained a local reputation for accomplishing daily tasks in remarkably skilled ways. At 17, driven and full of ambition, Tripp learned of a New York showman known for showcasing extraordinary talents. He packed up and left, holding just one name: P.T. Barnum. Upon arriving, he walked barefoot into Barnum's office and began his routine: brushing hair, folding laundry, slipping on socks. Barnum hired him immediately. Over 5 decades, Tripp's act evolved from practical skills to intricate penmanship and fine woodworking. His tandem bicycle photo with Eli remains iconic. Tripp passed away in 1930, aged 74. Number 6. Johnny Mia. If sideshow banners could speak, they'd probably sound like Johnny Mia. Born in 1937 in Bristol, Connecticut, Mia grew up surrounded by black and white newspaper cartoons. His father was a cartoonist, but color pulled him in. At 14, he attended his first carnival and met Hugo Zucchini, the human cannonball, who also happened to paint sideshow banners. That lit the spark. Mia began as a clown, learned fire-eating and sword-swallowing, and after a brief stint at RISD, he returned to carnival life. In 1956, he toured with the Ross Manning Show under Leola, aka Homer Tracy, a performer known as half-man, half-woman. Leola hired him to repaint worn-out banners, and that sealed it. Mia became legendary. Inspired by artists like Snap Wyatt and Fred Johnson, he blended whimsy with the bizarre. By the 1980s, galleries labeled his work as folk art. He didn't love the term, but went with it. Today, his paintings hang in the Smithsonian and Barnum Museum. Mia still paints and still tells stories. Number 5. Edward Mordache. Edward was born into British nobility in the 19th century, but no social standing or money could protect him from the horror of his own body, a second face on the back of his head. More than a deformity, this face seemed disturbingly sentient. According to legend, it whispered hateful things at night, cruel, mocking, and mentally tormenting Edward beyond endurance. Whether truly conscious or not remains unclear, but Edward begged doctors to remove it. Every surgeon refused, fearing the operation would kill him. Occultists and spiritualists offered no real solutions. Over time, the psychological burden consumed him. Isolated and overwhelmed, Edward eventually took his own life while still very young. Whether the story is fully true or partially embellished, it endures as one of the most chilling tales in medical folklore. Equal parts tragic and uncanny, It remains a haunting reminder of how physical abnormalities, myth, and mental anguish can blur until even truth and imagination become indistinguishable. Now let's move to number 4. Miran Dejo. Well, now this guy was the daredevil. Miran stunned the world by impaling his body with steel rods, without apparent pain or injury. In the 1940s, he gained global attention by driving swords, rods, and massive needles straight through his torso, all while showing no signs of bleeding, distress, or permanent damage. Initially dismissed as a fraud, Dejo silenced doubters when X-rays and medical examinations confirmed his stunts were authentic. Scans showed solid objects passing entirely through his body as he remained calm, breathing normally. His performances left scientists bewildered, unable to comprehend how he survived such trauma. Crowds across Europe watched in disbelief as he challenged every known limit of human biology. Miran became a living contradiction, part showman, part medical mystery. His legacy remains an unresolved marvel, a bizarre fusion of endurance, anatomy, and spectacle. Dejo didn't just test physical limits, he redefined them. To this day, he is still considered a legend. Number 3. The Ape Woman. Julia, famously known as the Ape Woman, was born in 1834 in Mexico with an extremely rare condition called hypertrichosis, which caused thick black hair to cover her entire body. She also had gingival hyperplasia, a disorder that enlarged her gums and gave her face an unusual look. These combined traits led to Julia being displayed worldwide in circuses and freak shows, often cruelly marketed as part human, part animal. Yet beyond the spectacle, Julia was a talented performer. She sang, danced, and appeared on prestigious stages, including Broadway, charming audiences throughout Europe and America. Tragically, her personal life was marked by manipulation. Her husband and manager, Theodore Lent, profited immensely from her condition. In 1860, Julia gave birth to a child who inherited her disorder, but died shortly after. Julia passed soon after due to complications. Her embalmed body toured Europe for decades before finally being returned to Mexico in 1972, offering a bittersweet end to her extraordinary exploited life. Number 2. Felix Verla. Born in Mount Ida in the early 1900s, Felix quickly realized he was different. His skin stretched like elastic, and he could twist his fingers in ways that made others recoil. Instead of hiding, he leaned in. Starting with small dime museums, Felix rose through the ranks to join top circus acts, including Barnum and Ringling Brothers. His lighthearted rivalry with fellow rubber man James Morris kept audiences buzzing. Though never formally diagnosed, many believe Felix had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a rare disorder known for ultra-flexible joints and stretchy skin. Medical curiosity aside, Felix had charm. With his freakish pliability and witty showmanship, he didn't just shock people, he entertained them. He transformed a rare condition into unforgettable theater. Number 1. Millie and Christine McCoy. Millie and Christine, widely known as the Two-Headed Nightingale, were conjoined twins born in 1851 in North Carolina. Born into slavery, they were sold multiple times before ever stepping foot on stage. As the years passed, they learned to sing, dance, and play instruments in perfect harmony, stunning audiences with piano duets and vocal performances. Touring globally, they entertained royalty and American presidents before eventually joining P.T. Barnum's famous Circus. Their talent and grace transcended barriers, earning them admiration across continents. In 1909, tragedy struck. A fire destroyed their 10-room Victorian home and irreplaceable travel mementos. Still, the McCoy sisters persevered. After retiring from performance in the early 1900s, they lived privately until Millie succumbed to tuberculosis in 1912. Christine, devastated, died the very next day. They were buried together in a specially designed double coffin, united not only by body, but by music, resilience, and lifelong sisterhood. Their story is one of hardship turned into dignity, and love inseparable even in death. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.